The elevator doors opened and Ethan froze. His adopted mother, the woman who had always been his anchor, was on her knees, scrubbing the floor while his fiancé issued orders from the living room. She looked fragile, silent, and bruised. Ethan didn't speak that night, but the cameras he had installed would soon reveal a truth capable of shattering everything. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support allows us to share more impactful stories. Now let's get back to it. It all began the night Ethan Wallace returned home early. The wheels of his suitcase whispered over the marble floor, and the penthouse smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. The air was still, the space silent. He loosened his tie and listened. Water ran quietly down the hall, accompanied by a low hum, the kind of tune people use to steady themselves. He followed the sound to the kitchen. Steam curled from the sink. A woman in a worn uniform was scrubbing a pot. It was Ruth. Ethan didn't interrupt. He simply watched. A bandage wrapped her left wrist and a purple bruise showed above her collar. She winced, turned off the tap and rubbed her hands as if trying to ease the pain. From the living room came a sharp voice. "Ruth, the floor. We have guests tomorrow. No streaks, Claire." His fiancée's tone was precise, managerial. Ruth murmured her acknowledgement. "Yes." She collected a bucket and slid a towel under her knees before resuming her work. The handle rattled, and Ethan felt his chest tighten. He stepped back behind the wall. The hall clock ticked sharply. The bruise on Ruth's wrist lingered in his mind. When she noticed him, she gave a quick, uneasy smile. "You're home," she said, reaching for a towel to dry her hands. The towel trembled. "You should have called." "What happened to your wrist?" Ethan asked. "Clumsy me," she replied, lightly, practiced. "Soap floors get slick." Claire entered in heels that clicked against the marble. She kissed Ethan and glanced at the bucket. "We had a spill." Ruth insisted on finishing. "She hates mess," Claire said. Ruth lowered her eyes. The room smelled of bleach and pasta. Ethan felt a metallic taste rise, a mix of anger and restraint. He asked about dinner. Claire ordered sushi and Ruth reached for the plates. Later, when the city outside quieted, Ethan walked through the rooms, noting the details that felt wrong. The guest robe lay damp in the laundry. A chipped mug was in the trash. A cushion sat wet on the terrace. He returned to the kitchen and found Ruth rinsing teacups at midnight. "Go rest," he said. "Please, I'm fine," she replied, though her breath caught. She patted his arm. "Big meeting tomorrow. Sleep." He nodded as if he believed her. Then he opened a drawer and retrieved a small camera. One he placed high on a shelf overlooking the kitchen, another facing the hallway. He adjusted the lenses, jaw tight. Not his style, but necessary. Downstairs, the concierge greeted a couple returning late. "The penthouse is hosting again," the man said. "She runs a tight ship. Poor lady," the woman whispered. Ethan stayed in the dark, listening to a home that felt borrowed. He told himself it was only for a day, one day, to uncover the truth. Morning light spilled across the glass towers, filling the penthouse with pale gold. Ethan poured himself a cup of coffee and waited, having slept little. Behind the kitchen vase, the camera light blinked faintly. Ruth moved quietly, folding linens with deliberate care, as if afraid to disturb the silence. Claire's perfume filled the room. "You're up early," she said, stretching. "I told Ruth to polish the silver before noon," Claire added. Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. Ruth's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the tray. The faint mark on her arm had darkened overnight. She flinched when Claire brushed past her shoulder too roughly. "Mom, come sit. Eat something," Ethan said softly. Ruth forced a small smile. After completing her chores, she whispered almost hesitantly as if asking permission. The aroma of coffee mingled with the smell of polish. The tension in the room was tangible. Claire scrolled through her phone, pretending not to notice. By noon, Ethan left for his meeting. Before stepping into the elevator, he glanced back. Ruth was standing by the window, dusting shelves she had already cleaned. That night, Ethan reviewed the footage. What he saw made his stomach twist. Claire sat on the couch with two friends, laughing, while Ruth scrubbed the floor. One friend deliberately tossed crumbs. The other smirked. Claire lifted her wine glass. If Ethan insists on keeping her here, she might as well earn her stay. Ruth didn't respond. She bent lower, her voice barely steady. "Yes, ma'am." Ethan closed the tablet, staring at his own reflection in the dark screen. His hand clenched until his knuckles went white. The next day, he acted normally. He brought flowers, kissed Claire on the cheek, and behaved as if he had seen nothing. He softened her defenses. When Ruth came to clear the table, Ethan gently caught her sleeve. "Mom, are you happy here?" She hesitated, then nodded too quickly. "You worry too much." Her voice cracked on the word much. That night, Ethan paced the terrace, watching city lights blink across the skyline. The apartment behind him was too quiet. He opened the footage again. Ruth carrying laundry twice her size, Claire shouting orders about doing it properly, the slap of fabric on tile, laughter. He pressed pause, jaw tight. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow it ends. He called his assistant and arranged a dinner for the following night. He gave no further instructions, only that everyone should be present. In the background, Ruth's faint song drifted through the halls, cracked by exhaustion yet gentle. Ethan closed his eyes. He hadn't heard that melody since childhood. The next evening, the penthouse glowed under soft lighting. The table was set for 8, silver cutlery arranged with precision. Ethan arrived first, calm on the surface, though every nerve burned beneath. Claire appeared radiant in a white gown, pretending warmth. "Finally a proper dinner," she said, brushing his shoulder. "You've been distant lately." He smiled faintly. "Just work." Guests arrived gradually. 2 partners from his firm, Claire's friends from the video, and Ruth, quiet in a plain gray dress. Her eyes darted between them, uncertain why she had been invited to sit. Ethan pulled out her chair. "You belong here," he said, his tone sharp enough to make everyone else pause briefly. Dinner began with laughter, strained and superficial. Claire led every joke, her charm only on the surface. Ruth barely touched her plate. When the main course was cleared, Ethan stood and dimmed the lights. "Before dessert," he said evenly, "I want to show something." A projector flickered on, and the screen descended from the ceiling. Confusion rippled around the table. Claire tilted her head, smiling. "What's this, love?" "Footage from last week," Ethan said. "Something I found interesting." The first clip showed Ruth kneeling, scrubbing tiles. Claire's voice filled the room. "Make sure the floor shines this time." No one laughed. Claire's fork clattered. Her friends stared at their plates. Ruth's hands trembled in her lap. Another clip played. Crumbs thrown, a bucket tipped over, wine spilled. Claire's mocking voice echoed. "If Ethan wants her here, she better earn it." Silence deepened. Only the hum of the projector remained. Ethan's gaze never wavered. "That's my mother you're speaking to." Claire's face paled. "Ethan, this isn't what it looks like." "It looks exactly like what it is," he said steadily. One partner muttered under his breath, "Jesus." Another shook his head. Ruth tried to rise. "Please stop this," she whispered, tears threatening. "She'll leave. Don't ruin your evening." Ethan reached for her hand. "She's already endured enough." Claire's friends began gathering their things, too embarrassed to speak. Claire stammered. "They pushed me into it." "I didn't mean—" He cut her off. "You didn't need anyone's help to show cruelty." The projection froze on Ruth kneeling. Ethan walked over and switched off the screen. Light returned, but warmth did not. The air carried the tense stillness that comes before a storm. He turned to Ruth. "You won't serve another person in this house again." Claire rose, her voice shaking. "You can't do this to me in front of them." He looked at her once. "I just did." No one touched dessert. After the guests left, the penthouse was heavy with silence. The city glowed beyond the glass walls, but inside every sound felt sharp. Claire paced near the bar, her heels clicking sharply. "You humiliated me," she snapped. "Do you realize what people will say?" Ethan leaned against the table, voice calm and low. "They'll say, 'I finally saw you.'" She threw her hands up. "You're overreacting. She's not your real mother. She works for you. She should know her place." He straightened. The look in his eyes stopped her. "My place exists because of her. You think the world handed me power?" "She built me," Claire scoffed. "She manipulated you, playing the victim, so you'd choose her over me." He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "She fed me when my birth parents threw me away. She never asked for anything. You, on the other hand, asked for everything." Claire's voice wavered. "You're throwing away our future over a maid." "No," he said. "I'm ending an illusion." He called security. "Take her to collect her things." "She leaves tonight." Claire's mouth fell open. "You can't be serious." Ethan didn't flinch. You stopped being a partner the moment you laid a hand on her. 2 guards appeared. Claire tried one last time, tears streaking her makeup. Ethan, please. I can change, he said nothing. The door closed behind her, muffling the sound of her sobs. Ruth stood in the corner, eyes wide, hands twisting the hem of her sleeve. You shouldn't have done that for me, she whispered. People will think I caused trouble. Ethan softened his tone. You didn't cause trouble. You revealed the truth. She shook her head, shoulders trembling. I wanted peace, not this. He stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. Peace doesn't come from silence. For the first time, her tears fell freely. You were that little boy who used to promise me the world if I stayed alive one more day. Now you've given too much, he smiled faintly. You gave first. Ethan instructed his assistant to reassign every staff member who had watched and said nothing. By dawn, the house had emptied. New hires arrived, calm and composed with respect in their eyes. That morning, gossip spread through the city. The Wallace engagement ended, someone said at a cafe. He chose his maid over his fiancée. Not a maid, another voice corrected. His mother. Back in the penthouse, Ethan brewed tea the way Ruth had taught him. Strong, mint-scented, steam curling like quiet forgiveness. He brought her a cup. No more uniforms, he said. She looked at the tea, then at him. Then what am I supposed to be now? He smiled. Home. Weeks passed. The city moved on from the scandal, but inside the penthouse something new grew. Ruth no longer wore plain clothes. She chose bright scarves, soft cardigans, and silver jewelry Ethan had given her years ago, but she had never dared to wear. The house felt alive again. The smell of coffee and baked bread replaced bleach. Staff greeted her with quiet respect. One morning, someone whispered, "She's the reason he became who he is." Others nodded. Ethan kept his word. He converted the guest wing into a foundation named the Ruth Wallace Home for Caregivers, dedicated to honoring women who raise children not born to them, but shaped by love. Reporters sought a comment. He only said, "Some wealth you measure in money, some in the hands that fed you," and walked away. One evening, the sky turned orange behind the glass walls. Ruth sat on the balcony sipping tea. Ethan joined her quietly. The hum of the city floated below. "I never wanted revenge," she said. "It was never revenge," he replied. "It was respect overdue." She chuckled softly. "You always did take things too far." He rested his head lightly on her shoulder like the boy who couldn't sleep. "And you always forgave too easily," he added. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the faint rhythm of traffic and the rustle of curtains filled the space. Ruth broke the silence. "Do you miss her?" He exhaled. "No, I miss who I thought she was." Ruth nodded, eyes glistening. "That's how you know you're healing." He looked at her hand, the same one that had carried him through hunger, sickness, and storms, and took it gently. "I used to think money made me powerful. Turns out love made me untouchable." Ruth smiled. The lines on her face softened by the golden light. "Now you sound like a man I'd be proud to call my son." "You always did," he said. The city lights blinked on as night settled. Inside, warmth replaced the pain of the past. For the first time in years, the penthouse truly felt like home. Sometimes the richest people aren't those with money. They're the ones who never forgot who lifted them. What Ethan did wasn't revenge. It was justice wrapped in love. If this story moved you, share it. Kindness should never be treated as weakness.